quite recall, but did you answer whether, or I guess, at what time period? Oh no, okay, I guess you didn't. That's my bad. Okay, so we were talking about Charlie having been in Kihei for how long?
I believe it was a few months.
Okay, and you had previously talked about her being given residence by MJ. Where would that have been?
Up in Kula, at his property.
Have you been to that property?
Yes, I have.
Okay, can you describe that?
It's a coffee farm. It has, I don't know how many acres actually, but it has his barn down on the bottom where he lives and another house up at the top.
And where was Charlie staying?
She would have stayed down at the barn, in the room up above the garage.
Okay, and do you know how long she was staying there?
We don't actually know. It could have been up to a year though.
Just objection is the lack of foundation speculation with the last answer.
Well, let me ask you it this way. When was the last time you were up at that property when Charlie was living there? And if you could give us, I guess, in a year, a month, and date estimate rather than maybe a year back or anything like that.
I don't actually recall.
Would this have been, would Charlie's stay at this Kula property have been after the Kihei property or before the Kihei property?
It would have been before.
And so you have personal knowledge of her having moved from that Kula property to the Kihei property?
Yes, I believe so.
Did you help her move?
She didn't really have too much to move. Most of her items were actually in my room at the Haiku house.
So your testimony would be that even though she was staying at the Kula property with at MJ's Kula property, she did not have all of her personal belongings at that property?
If she was at the Kula property, she would have had her bed.
Well, you don't know that, right?
I do object to speculation at this point.
That's fine.
The objection is the same.
No, I just want to focus on, in terms of your testimony, that she had a lot of her property at your Haiku property.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Her bed was there.
Okay, when you say her bed was there, her bed was at your property?
Yes.
So she would have been using a bed that was over at MJ's?
No, I do believe that her bed would have been at the Kula property.
Okay. I thought did you just testify that it was at your property though?
After she moved out of the Kula property, it would have been in the Haiku house with me.
Okay. And so what other personal belongings were you referring to when you said Charlie kept a lot of them at your property when she was living up at MJ's?
So anything big, like she had a chair and 2 other couches. She had a filing cabinet. I think those were the main things, but anything big she actually kept at in my room in the Haiku house, and she kept just all her clothing.
In terms of her living situation up at MJ's, then would you say that she didn't need to furnish where she stayed? It was already furnished?
Objection, lack of foundation speculation.
The objection is sustained.
Had you ever been up to that property?
Which one?
The MJ's Kula property where Charlie was living?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say then that relative to Charlie having to bring any of her furnishing, that it was already a furnished place, she didn't need to bring her furnishings then?
For in her room, she would have had to bring her own furnishings. Everywhere else was furnished.
Did she, to your personal knowledge, was there any other place that Charlie lived other than the property she was ultimately at when she went missing?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Now, would it be accurate to say that when she was living up at MJ's, that MJ was living with her?
Yes.
Objection is the lack of personal knowledge, also foundation and speculation.
The objection is sustained.
Did you ever go up to Charlie's when she was living at MJ's property?
Yes, I had.
Did you ever see MJ there?
Yes, I did.
Did you see where he was living?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that they were living in the same residence?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. When you were interviewed by detectives, did you inform any of these detectives about MJ?
No, I have not.
Did you ever observe Johnny Pipkin interact with Stephen Capobianco?
You know, the state does object. This goes beyond the scope of direct.
The objection is sustained.
It would be your testimony that you don't believe that Stephen and Charlie ever talked about baby names, right?
Judge, objection. This calls for opinion. It's speculation.
The objection is sustained.
Just sifting through some, I think we're almost done, sir. Okay. Now, you testified about a voicemail that you received from Stephen sometime after you were informed that Charlie was pregnant, right?
I did not personally receive this voicemail.
But you talked about, or you didn't testify about hearing anything of that?
I did hear a voicemail.
And you testified about what you heard, right?
Yes.
Now, you'd agree with me that at the heart of what you heard was Stephen wondering why she hadn't called him back in a while, right?
Yes.
And that he was coming to the conclusion in the voicemail that she decided to keep the baby, right?
Yes.
Because that's the last that he had heard, was that she wasn't keeping the baby, right?
I believe so.
And that was his understanding, that as of the last time they spoke, she was having an abortion, right?
I'm not too sure about all of that.
And you know that, from personal knowledge, that Charlie was not calling Stephen throughout that whole time period, right?
No, objection. This would be calls for hearsay, also speculation.
The objection is sustained.
Throughout the time period from when you called Stephen after hearing the news to, well, I'll say the next couple months, would it be fair to say that you never observed Charlie call Stephen?
From what
Judge,
I,
the state does object that Ms. State's testimony
The
is
objection
to.
is sustained.
Thank you.
And you'd agree with me that the gist of that voicemail was that he was asking Charlie to talk to him, right?
yeah.
Along the lines of, hey, why are you ignoring me? If you're gonna have a kid, and it's my kid, we ought to talk about it, right?
Objection, Your Honor. That is not accurate. Ms. State's evidence assumes that's not evidence.
She can answer no then.
The objection is sustained.
I mean, would you agree with me that it would be a reasonable request under the circumstances to want to speak to the person who's having your baby after that person has ignored you for months after saying there was going to be an abortion?
Objection, counsel is testifying that calls for opinion, and it is pure
The
speculation.
objection is sustained.
Would you agree with me that Charlie had no intent to raise that child in the place that she was living at when she went missing?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation, and
The
your
objection is sustained.
Thank you.
Did you ever make plans to live with Charlie and the baby and to help raise the baby as a colony at any point?
Yes, we had talked about it.
And was this at a point in time when Brooke was pregnant as well?
I believe she was at that time, yes.
And the idea was that having two babies, raising them as a colony, would be that more beneficial for both children?
Judge, objection, again, this calls for
The
hearsay.
objection is sustained.
Thank you.
You testified on direct about Charlie having a tongue ring, right?
Yes.
Nipple rings,
Yes.
and that would be on both nipples?
Yes.
And what was the last thing that you testified about?
She did have her clitoris pierced, but I did forget that she had her ears pierced as well.
I'm sorry, was that her ears?
Her ears as well, yes.
And you'd agree with me that these were done after she broke up with Stephen?
Objection to speculation, lack of foundation.
The objection is overruled. You may answer the question.
I believe she had her ears, her tongue, and her nipples pierced before she was dating Stephen.
So relative to her clitoris being pierced, then that would have been after dating Stephen?
Yes.
Now, you'd agree with me that nipple piercings have sexual connotations to it?
Judge, objections.
The objection
It's
is
ridiculous. Thank you.
If I were to touch your nipples,
Judge, objection.
That-
This is badgering Miss Weiss at this point.
Judge, if I'm not
This
able
is
to do
beyond
it,
the scope. Correct.
And beyond, way beyond the scope.
Judge, I can't cross-examine relative to what they brought up?
This is not an area they brought up.
How did it get in trial? I didn't bring in the nipple piercing in the...
Your question doesn't deal with the existence of it. Your question deals with an area related to its effect. That's beyond the scope of direct.
I can't cross-examine as to...
Absolutely
It's
not.
beyond the scope of direct. I mean,
They put it out in direct. How can I not cross-examine about it?
questions related to its existence, not related to the area that you're examining.
Judge, I do object to counsel making faces after the court rules. That's not fair.
I'm trying
It's
to
not professional.
reformulate a question right now, if that's okay.
It's not okay if he's making those faces, Your Honor, to the jury after the court has ruled.
When I say statements or remarks of counsel are not evidence in the case, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, that includes facial expressions as well.
Thank you.
From both sides.
Well, I mean, let me ask you this, because you testified about the clitoris piercing, right?
I did say that she had one.
Why did you testify about that?
I was,
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
I can't ask a single question about what they brought up in direct?
Your Honor,
That's what
yes.
cross-examination is for.
Objection is to the commentary and to arguing.
The
Cross-examination
question is framed, why did you testify to that? And the court's view is objectionable. You may rephrase the question concerning the existence of such a piercing.
I can't ask a more fundamental question as to why she testified about it? That's my understanding of cross-examination, is to be able to ask questions about what was brought up in direct.
To ask proper questions, not those type of questions.
A simple
Just in the
why.
interest of time, if you can answer that question, you may answer the question.
I thought I was just asked what kind of piercings, so I stated all of her piercings.
What is the significance of a unicorn tattoo?
Objection beyond the scope, Your Honor, and relevance. And it's vague and ambiguous.
The objection is sustained.
Phaedra, you know that Charlie had a unicorn tattoo, right?
Yes.
In addition to these body piercings, right?
Yes.
Do you know what the sexual connotation definition of the unicorn is?
Judge, objection, lack of foundation, speculation, and it's bordering on badgering Ms. Weiss again with questions involving sexual innuendos.
Judge, I'm going to re-offer my previous question as to, this is going to be the tie-in in terms of sexual connotations.
Well, then this goes beyond the scope if that's where you're headed.
If they can talk about piercings, why can't they put a tattoo in?
We're talking about the existence of piercings, which bears some relationship to some of the other evidence that's been presented. I don't recall any testimony concerning its significance related to the sexual connotation. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
But I would like to make those point that clitoris piercing is
No,
sexual.
Judge, I object to this line of commentary.
I'll move on, Judge, I'll move on. I will accept the court's ruling. Relative to this ping that you testified about, is there anywhere in that image that has a 4-digit Hana Highway address on it?
Not that I can recall.
Well, relative to that, you've already drawn out what you do recall as being on the image, right?
Yes.
And your testimony was that it was exactly the same image as yours, except for the picture and placement of Charlie's face,
Yes.
which you drew in as with a box, right?
Yeah.
So you'd agree with me that that image that you offered up did not have any kind of 4-digit Hana Highway address on it.
Yeah, not that I recall.
Relative to that original February 10th image that you testified you observed, where is that right now, to your knowledge?
That actual image? I'm actually not sure.
Pedro, thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Redirect yourself.
The defense lawyer, Phaedra, or Ms. Weiss, asked you if there was a 4-digit address on the image that was shown to you. And I guess in this case, this would be State's Exhibit 117. I guess a screenshot of the Life
I'm
360.
going to object. It misstates the question and evidence. I was talking about the February 10th original image.
We'll talk about that, John. I would draw the question and move to
The
that.
question is withdrawn.
Okay, the February 10th image that counsel is referring to, do you know which image he was referring to?
To the original of Charlie's being?
Right, is that what your understanding was of the question?
Yes.
Okay, and his question to you was there a 4-digit address to that image? Remember being asked that?
Yes.
Yeah, and you said there was no 4-digit address.
Not that I recall.
Okay. When you were in the Paraquats area, when you guys did that search on Thursday, February 13th, did you see any houses in that area?
No.
How about when
When
you,
you object as to the leading question,
The objection is to state.
move to strike.
what if
Motion
any,
to strike is granted.
what if any residences did you see in that area?
I don't recall seeing any houses near that area.
Okay. And remember testifying on direct examination about when you did find your phone in Giggle Hill? Remember you testified about that?
Yes.
And you said you were able to find your phone, is that right?
Yes, I
Okay.
was.
When you did the ping on your phone, what if any 4-digit address appeared? And Giggle Hill.
Objection leading.
Yeah, right. So what if
Assumes facts not in evidence.
The objection is sustained. You may rephrase your question.
when you pinged your phone after losing it at Giggle Hill, you understand my question?
Yes.
What if any addresses appeared on that ping?
Objection calls for hearsay.
You know, this calls for her ping what she observed.
The objection, so you answer the question.
I don't.
I take it she gets to just talk about what the image she observed?
That's correct.
Okay, sorry about that. Go ahead and answer the question.
I don't recall any 4-digit addresses or any address being displayed then.
Were there any houses what if any houses did you observe in Giggle Hill?
There were a few houses to the back of Gable Hill.
What if did that have anything to do, or the area where the houses were, was that the same area where your phone was?
No, it wasn't.
Objection leading.
The objection is sustained.
Move to strike the answer.
No.
The motion to strike is granted.
Okay, Judge, I'm going to go to a completely different area at this point.
Objection narrative. You can ask the question, I guess, but.
I'm talking to the court. Counsel's being ridiculous again.
So that it would be an appropriate time to take a lunch break. So we'll take our,
Yeah, I'm gonna object to counsel just calling me a dummy as he's walking by.
if you did, first of all, if it happened, I didn't hear it. If it did happen, that is, I would agree. If that happened,
Ask him if it happened.
wait,
You dummy.
okay,
Let's bring the cameras in.
all right.
You dummy?
Mr.
Judge, counsel's drawn this thing out.
Stop it.
Judge, I'm an adult male. I don't need to be insulted like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll let you go on your lunch recess at this time. And we'll see you later. Thank you so much. Counsel will remain.